it was in Brookline. SS Pierce had a store downstairs. There was like a Jewish dance on a Saturday night, and I went to this dance, and I'm sitting down there, and I danced with a couple of people, and then I'm sitting down, and Phyllis walks over, and she says, "Boy, there's a bunch of jerks there," and we start talking. Then after I says, "You want to try dancing?" And when I danced with her, I danced perfect, and then I says, "Where do you live?" And she says, "I live in Malden." I didn't know where Malden was. I says, "Do you mind if I..." And she came with a girlfriend. I says, "Do you want me to take you home?" She says, "Okay." So she dumped her girlfriend, and I took her home. And there was like a cafeteria. We went into the cafeteria. It was about 11 o'clock, 11:30. We had a cup of coffee or something, I know. Then I dropped her off at the house, and I said, "I'll contact you." And I called her a week later from Providence.
And when you were dating, would you drive up to Boston every weekend, or what would happen? Do you remember?
Yeah, I drove up. I used to drive up, and when I came, the first time I came home about 4:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. My parents said, "Where were you? What happened to you?" I said, "Oh, I went to Boston. I went to a dance." Anyway, so then I used to stay at her brother's house. Her brother had an apartment right around the corner where she lived. He was married. He had a child. So I slept there a couple of weekends, quite a few weekends, and then after that was it. So we would date, and we got married December 7th. What's Valerie's birthday?
December 8th, yes.
We got married December 7th.
What year? Do you remember?
I don't remember the year.
Okay. And then how old were you? What kind of car did you have back then? Do you remember?
I had a Plymouth.
You know what year it was? You don't remember?
I don't know.
Was
I
it?
used to, at that time, cars were, I used to trade in every 2 years. They were reasonable.
You mean you'd buy a new car?
Yeah.
You could afford a new car every 2 years and trade it in?
Every 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't too much money. Maybe $500, less than $500.
So this must have been in like 53, like 1950-ish, something like that?
I got out in 1946, so it must have been in the early 50s.
Okay, and you were a photographer then, right?
Yeah.
How much you think you made a year then? Do you remember?
I used to make
In the 1950s, do you remember?
in the 50s and the 60s. I'd make over $100 a week.
100, so like $5,000 a year. Yeah, for $100 a week.
Yeah, maybe 6, 7.
And then when did you buy your first house? What was the first house you bought?
We were living in Malden for about 6 years. We were living in Malden, and during the summertime, we rented for 3 months in Winthrop. There was like 1 or 2 rooms. There was a lot of rentals there, and there was a beach, and we were very close to the beach, so we rented. So we rented for maybe 4 or 5 years or so, and then I had an opportunity to buy a house there.
And how much was your first house?
The first house was like $22,000.
That was Cutler Street?
Yeah.
That was the only house you owned, right?
Right.
You paid 22.
Family brick house.
22,000.
22,000.
And what year do you think that was? I think I was in about 7th grade.
Yeah.
So that must have been around 1967-ish, something like that. Okay, great. Any other things you want to say about the military? Remember anything about any big good military stories?
No. When I was in Okinawa, I had a tent with my equipment, and there was a guy who lived with me in the tent. He had we had a folding bed and a mattress, and so he lived with me, and I had a big box with my photography equipment, my camera and all the stuff that when it was a big foot lock, it had a lock on it. Anyway, so we lived there, and in the daytime it used to be like 80, 85 degrees. At nighttime it got down to 50. So, and I used to put my pea coat on my feet, and I was freezing. And if your feet are warm, the rest of your body's warm. Anyway, about a month or 2 months after we were there, somehow he got 2 sleeping bags. And once I got a sleeping bag, I was warm. It was wonderful. So,
And why were you there to take pictures? What was your job? What were you supposed to take pictures of?
When we first got there, some of the officers, they got me in a Jeep, and we went sightseeing in Naha. That was the capital. And there was a plane there. They took pictures near they posed near the plane. I was using the Navy supplies, taking pictures of them. And so, anyway, then after a while went by, and they decided that we had units. I forget what they called them. They're like 30, 40 men in a unit, maybe 50 men in a unit. I forget what they call them. So
a squadron?
What?
A squadron, a platoon?
Something like that, yeah. So anyway, they decided that they'd take pictures of each platoon. So we did that, and then after we made pictures. There was a guy, he knew something about photography. He wanted to get out of the job he was in, so he became my helper. I had a dark room, and so we eventually, each guy, we had 1,000 men. So each unit, I took a group picture of each unit, and each guy got a picture of his unit. So that was the story.
Okay. So today's May 15th, 2018,
Right.
and Sid's approaching his 97th birthday. What do you attribute your long life to?
Genes. My parents were in their 90s, although my father was in a nursing home for 4 or 5 years. When he passed away, he was in his 90s. And my mother, she wound up in California, living with my sister. And when she was living with my sister, she was cooking Jewish meals for them. And
This was after your dad died?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
A couple of years after he died, she moved to California.
Okay. And then you still drive at night?
Yeah.
By yourself?
Yeah.
Is it dangerous?
Well, I don't do much driving at nighttime. If I have to drive, I do. But anyway, in 2014, Jackie and I leased a car, but because she, unknown to her, she was signed up as an owner of her granddaughter's car. She didn't know that she was the owner of the car and the financial statement. Anyway, when it came time to lease a car, she couldn't use her name. So I used my name. We leased a 014 Nissan. Came 017, the lease expired. Jackie was, I don't know if she was, anyway, I don't know if she was still alive, I think. Anyway, so then the lease expired. So they said, what are you going to do? I said, okay, I'll buy the car. So I had a lease for 7 years. Now, anyway, the lease, I leased the car 2 years ago. So I got 5 more years.
So they sold it to you. The lease was up. After the lease was up, they sold you the car, and you have 5 more years left in your car.
Yeah. Right.
So your car will be paid off when you're like 102.
Something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. So this is listen to Sid on May 15th. Goodbye. Wave goodbye, Sid.
Bye-bye.
Okay.